Hello. Thank you for your continuous support, this means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. Now, let's dive into the details of today's story. The door didn't slam. That's the part one keep replaying in my head. Not her words, not her expression, just that soft click of the front door as it shut behind me. Like even gravity had given up on making a scene. She stood in the hallway in that ridiculous oversized sweater she wore when wanted to look harmless. And when she said it, those 5 words, I swear time slowed just enough for me to catch the shift in her eyes. Like she wasn't talking to me anymore, but practicing for someone else. "You're being controlling," she said. And just like that, I became the villain in a story I didn't even know was being written. I didn't shout. Didn't defend myself. I didn't explain how I'd spent the night before folding her laundry and Googling how to fix the heater she complained about once and never mentioned again. I just reached over to the hook-by door, took my keys, and handed them to her. She blinked. For a split second, I think she thought I'd call her bluff, but I didn't. I opened the door and walked out barefoot, straight into January air that bit into my skin like it had been waiting for me to step outside alone. No plan, no bag, jacket, just one overwhelming instinct. Don't stay where you're not trusted. I walked past the parked cars and the sagging mailbox, the dent in the sidewalk we always said we'd fix together. I walked until my legs were numb. I walked until forgot I was even walking. Then I stopped and did something pathetic, I'm ashamed of even now. I called her. Stood under a flickering street lamp with a cracked screen pressed to my face, and I called the woman who told me was too much for her. I don't know what expected. Maybe an apology, maybe just the sound of her voice cracking. Instead, I got voicemail. The next morning, I went back. Not because forgave her, not because I wanted to talk, but because I realized left my medication in the bathroom drawer and didn't want to go another night without it. That's when I saw it. The guest bathroom light was on. The curtain in the window pulled halfway open and a second coffee mug on the table. Mine had been chipped on the side for months. This one was new. And there a jacket draped over the back of dining chair. Not hers. Mine. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't knock. Just stood outside that window and listened. At first, it was laughter. Hers. Then a low male voice I didn't recognize. Then the sound of a zipper. I stood there for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. I know because counted every single second like it might undo the next. That night, I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't devastated, but because devastation hadn't even started yet. This was something else, something colder. And if I'd known what I would find later that week, underneath the floorboard of laundry room, behind a stack of old winter shoes, I might not have walked away that first night. I might have run. I waited until she left the house again before I came back. It was 2 days later around 1:30 in the afternoon. Her car wasn't in the driveway and spare key was still duct taped to the back of fuse box like always. She never thought to move it, probably because she assumed I was too spineless to return. And maybe I was, but I needed answers more than needed dignity. I didn't storm inside. Moved slowly, cautiously, like a guest in a home that used to be mine. Everything looked the same. Our wedding photo on the wall, stupid throw pillows she made me buy, the faint scent of lavender she sprayed on the curtains to keep the house calm. It all felt staged now, like a memory someone had polished and propped up for show. I didn't go into the bedroom. I couldn't. Instead, I went straight to the laundry room, which was always her least favorite space. That's where I remembered something strange. A week before she called me controlling, I was trying to fix the broken vent under dryer. The cover had popped off and I reached behind it to grab a screw. My hand brushed something. A small flat surface underneath the floorboard. But I was tired and she just come home, I never got the chance to check. So now standing alone in the laundry room with her ghost hanging in the air, I grabbed the screwdriver from the top shelf and started removing the trim along edge of the floor. The screws came out easier than I expected, almost too easily, as if they'd been taken out before. I lifted the board. There it was, a shallow wooden box barely the size of a pizza box. Inside, neatly stacked like secrets filed away, were things that made my stomach lurch. First was a burner phone. Cheap, dusty, but clearly charged recently. I turned it on. No lock. Dozens of messages loaded instantly. Brett, can you wear the red one again tonight? You know what it does to me. Or Laura, only if you promise to leave before Curtis gets home this time. I stopped reading. My chest felt tight, like the walls of that little room were closing in, pressing every breath out of me. I should have stopped there. Should have put everything back and walked away again. But I didn't. There was more. A man's watch, not mine. Hotel keycard labeled Wellington, room 143, and a wrinkled envelope. Inside were $2,100 bills. She had a stash, cash, communication, coordination. This wasn't some drunken accident or one-off affair. This was premeditated. A system, a parallel life. She hadn't just fallen out of love with me. She'd replaced me. I sat on the cold laundry room floor, the open box between my knees, the burner phone in my lap, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not sadness, just complete and total insignificance. Like I'd become a background character in my own marriage. Then something on the phone screen flickered. A new message. Brett, we good for Friday? Curtis gone sure. That's when I realized they were still going, still planning. Still assuming I was just some broken man who'd never come back. And maybe I was. But something had changed now. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I wanted the full story, and I was going to get it. No matter how deep I had to dig, didn't go home after finding the stash in the floorboard. I couldn't. Drove around for hours, circling the same few blocks like I was stuck in a holding pattern, waiting for some kind of mental runway to clear. The phone was in my pocket, powered off. I couldn't bear to look at it anymore. Every buzz or ping felt like a needle behind my ribs. At around 6:45 p.m., I parked outside the Wellington Inn. It was one of those older boutique hotels trying desperately to seem trendy, dimly lit lobby, overly cheerful receptionist, complimentary cucumber water. I stood outside the automatic doors for nearly 5 minutes watching guests come and go. None of them looked like Aurora. None of them looked like me either. They looked people who still believed in what they had inside. The air smelled like artificial roses and burnt coffee. I walked up to the front desk and leaned in, trying to sound casual. Hi. I left something in room 143 the other day. I was wondering if it turned up and lost and found the guy behind desk. Skinny, early 20s with hair that probably cost more than my shoes, glanced at the screen and said, room 143. Oh, let me check. He tapped the keyboard. You said the other day? Yeah, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Friday night. He frowned. Strange. No record of any lost items, but someone else just asked about that room an hour ago. I blinked. Someone else? He nodded slowly, like he suddenly regretted saying it. Yeah. Guy in a grey hoodie, tall, maybe late 30s. Said he left a watch there. My heart dropped into my stomach. That was the watch I'd found in the box. Brett had been here today. Maybe still was. The guy kept talking, but I wasn't hearing much anymore. I left the lobby without saying anything else, my ears ringing. I circled around to the side of the building, looked up, and spotted a window with the curtains slightly parted. Room 143. I didn't have a key. Didn't need one. I waited in the shadows between two parked cars, heart pounding like I was some kind of thief for stalker. At exactly 7:12, the hallway lights inside flickered on. The elevator dinged and a figure stepped out into the hallway. Adjusting a coat and pulling a bag over one shoulder. Tall grey hoodie Brett. He didn't see me. Crossed the lot, unlocked a black Dodge Charger, and drove off without looking back. I waited 10 more minutes, then walked back into the hotel. This time, I didn't bother with the desk. I took stairs up to the second floor, found room 143, and knocked once. No answer. Twice. Nothing. I placed my ear to the door. Silence. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the hotel keycard from the stash. I held my breath, swiped it. Green light. Click. The door opened. The room was dim, still warm, like someone had just left. The bed was unmade. 2 pillows both used. 1 wine glass by the sink. A faint trace of her perfume still hung in the air. And on the dresser, God help me, was a printed itinerary. Flight confirmations. Hotel reservations. Miami. Alora's name in the top corner and a note scrolled in sharp black ink. Pick me up from the airport. Sunday 11 a.m. Can't wait. Finally free. I stared at it for a long time. Not just because it was real, but because of what it meant. She wasn't planning to fix our marriage. She wasn't just cheating. She was leaving for good for him. And she hadn't told me because she didn't need to, because in her mind, I was already gone. And the worst part, she wasn't wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. Sat in my car outside the Wellington until my fingers went numb on the steering wheel and the windshield fogged up from my breath. Eventually, the cold forced me to move. I drove aimlessly past half-let diners, empty lots, and rows of houses where people still trusted each other enough to sleep. Around 4 a.m., I parked outside the only place that still felt remotely like mine, Riverside High, where I taught music. Knew the janitor, Benny, started early. He let me in without asking questions. Maybe the look in my eyes said enough. I told him I needed to grab something from my desk, but that was a lie. I just needed somewhere no one would find me, somewhere I could fall apart without the humiliation of an audience. I locked myself in the back practice room, one no one used since the piano pedal got stuck. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me as I sat on the bench, staring at the instrument like it might confess something. But then my phone vibrated. Not the burner, my real phone, one I hadn't touched in 2 days. It was a notification from the school security system. Remote access. Someone had accessed the cameras. I frowned. Didn't think much of it at first. We had security cams installed in the front entrance, parking lot, and hallways last fall after the break-in. Occasionally, admin would pull footage if there was a student issue, but I have the teacher app on my phone, too, just for emergency alerts. This wasn't a student. Was an admin. Curious, I opened the app and flipped through the motion triggers from the previous day. One alert at 6:08 p.m. stood out. Way after hours, the hallway came outside my classroom. I tapped it. The footage loaded. Aurora. She was standing just outside my classroom door, wearing jeans and a white coat. Her hair pulled up the way she did when wanted to look casual but still turn heads. She wasn't alone. A man stood beside her. Not tall, shaved head, thin build, not Brett. They talked for a few seconds. Then she pulled something out of her coat. Keys. My keys. She opened the door. They both went inside. The footage ended there. No exit clip, no departure, nothing. My stomach dropped. I ran down the hall to my classroom and flipped on the lights. Everything looked in place. Desk, shelves, whiteboard, until I noticed the file cabinet, bottom drawer slightly open. I yanked it out. Most of my personal files were there. Student compositions, spare sheet music, old receipts, nothing valuable, nothing worth stealing, but one folder was missing, one I hadn't touched in years. Titled House Refinance 2017. It contained the original paperwork from when Aurora and I bought our home. Co-signed agreements, insurance details, backup copies of tax returns, banking info, stuff no one had touched since we settled into that little 2-bedroom starter house we thought we'd grow old in. Now it was gone. Someone had taken it. Suddenly, the itinerary in hotel room made more sense. She wasn't just planning to leave. She was planning liquidate, to vanish, and she needed our house to do it. I pulled out my phone, hand shaking, and tried to call the bank. They were closed. Obviously, it was still dark outside, but my gut told me something had already started moving. I checked my email. A new message sat in my inbox. Time-stamped at 3:11 a.m. Subject line, Notice of Join Account Change Request. No message, just a PDF attachment. I opened it. My name had been removed from the mortgage contact list. A change request had been submitted with forged initials. My initials. The signature looked just enough like mine to fool a tired banker. But it wasn't mine. I was being erased. Not just from her life, but my own. By the time sun came up, something inside me had shifted. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was something more corrosive: clarity. That bitter moment when you finally realized the life you've been defending with your silence no longer exists. Aurora wasn't breaking things by accident. She was burning the blueprint, dismantling everything piece by with precision. But she made a mistake. She left me just enough string to follow. I drove straight to the county clerk's office that morning before they even unlocked the doors. The woman behind the glass, Nora, knew me. Her son was in my guitar club 2 years ago. I told her I needed to see the most recent change request on our property records. I expected pushback, a request for ID, maybe even a lecture. Instead, she said quietly, "You're the second person to ask about that this week." I froze. Second tall woman, classy, real polished. She had a man with her, but he didn't speak much. "Was his name Brett?" I asked. She frowned. No, introduced him as her legal consultant. "Guy named Monroe. Said you'd approved the whole thing already." My stomach flipped. Monroe. I'd heard that name before, but not in connection to Aurora. That name belonged to her ex, Gavin Monroe. They dated almost 15 years ago before me. He was some shady finance guy who got caught up in a local tax scandal, then disappeared. When Aurora and I started dating, she told me he was a mistake from her past and swore she hadn't spoken to him since. Now he was forging my name. I thanked Nora and left, heart pounding like a wardrobe in my chest. I didn't go home. I went to someone who knew Aurora before I did. Kendra. She and Aurora had been friends since college. They used to be inseparable until something tore them apart 5 years ago. I was never told why. Aurora just said Kendra became toxic and stopped returning her calls. I didn't press at the time. I should have. Hadn't spoken to Kendra in over 4 years, but I still had her number saved. She answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was flat, guarded. "Hello, Kendra. It's Curtis." A pause. Then, "Wow. Okay, this must be serious." "It is." Another pause. Then she sighed. "I figured you'd call eventually." "What did she do?" "She's trying to remove me from the mortgage. There's a man with her, Gavin Monroe. You remember him?" Kendra let out a sharp breath. "Yeah, unfortunately." "What happened between you two?" I asked. She lied, she said without hesitation. Aurora lied about everything. Gavin's not just her ex. He's not even her ex. His fallback plan. They've been on and off for over a decade. Every time she feels trapped, she runs back to him. My throat tightened. "She told me you were too clingy," Kendra continued. "That you didn't let her be free. That's how she justifies what she does." "But Curtis," her voice dropped. "This isn't new. Is her pattern." I didn't speak. Couldn't. Kendra wasn't finished. She used to say it like a joke. "If Curtis ever gets boring, Gavin will always pick up." She meant it. She meant all of. I hung up not long after. I didn't know what to say. Kendra had handed me a truth I hadn't been ready for. This wasn't a sudden affair. This wasn't a collapse. It was an exit strategy designed years ago, and I'd been a placeholder the entire time. Back at the house, I parked across the street and watched. Her car was there, lights off, curtains drawn. I couldn't go inside. But I had to know what she was planning next. So, I turned the burner phone back on. Dozens of messages loaded. Most were from Brett. I ignored them. Then one came through just minutes ago from a contact labeled G. "You said he's weak. That he'd never fight. Finish this." Another bus. "G, Miami house is ready. Sell before Sunday or I'm done playing." There it was. Proof. She wasn't just betraying me. She was working with him, planning something long-term, something that went beyond infidelity. She was laundering our life into her next one. And unless I did something fast, I'd be erased before anyone even noticed I was missing. That night, I didn't just feel betrayed. Felt endangered, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. And the person I thought would pull me back was the one pushing harder. Gavin wasn't some fling. He was a snake. And Aurora had built him a tunnel straight into the heart of my life. They weren't planning to leave me broken. They were planning to leave me invisible. But people no matter how careful, always underestimate quiet men. They mistake decency for weakness. They mistake boundaries for chains. And they never consider that someone like me might stop playing defense. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. Drove straight to the school again, but not for a breakdown this time. I want to use the computer lab. The admin system had a private server I could access with my teacher ID, one that backed up security footage, emails, and maintenance logs. It wasn't meant for personal use, but I didn't care. I needed eyes on Aurora, and this was the only place she wouldn't think to scrub. It took 2 hours, but I found what I was looking for. 3 days earlier, before she told me I was controlling, Aurora had come to the school. I caught her on camera in the front office lying smoothly to our secretary about needing to drop off Curtis's lunch. Then she walked toward the staff wing. There on the footage, she met Gavin. Same hoodie, same face. They ducked into my classroom for 15 minutes. No one else saw them, but I did. And I saw what she carried in her hand when she walked in a folder. My folder. She had stolen it before we even had that fight. The controlling speech was a setup, distraction designed to make me feel like the aggressor while she made her exit. I saved the footage on a USB and pocketed it. This wasn't just emotional manipulation. It was calculated fraud. I needed more than evidence. I needed leverage. So, did something she would never expect. I called her mother, Lynette, and I had never been close. She always looked at me like I was the fork her daughter brought home when she asked for chopsticks, but she was sharp, observant, and extremely concerned about her daughter's image, and that made her useful. She picked up after 2 rings. Curtis, I didn't give her time for pleasantries. I have reason to believe Aurora and a man named Gavin Monroe are forging legal documents in my name, I said. A pause. I'm sorry. What? They've accessed our mortgage, tried to remove me from the deed, and are planning to sell the house while I'm still legally bound to it. I have security footage and digital records. If I go to the police, could face criminal charges. She was quiet for a long time. Then why are you telling me this? Because I'm giving her one chance, I said, my voice shaking from exhaustion and fury. 1, she returns every document, confesses what she did, and walks away with nothing. If she does that, I won't press charges. If she doesn't, I will file for criminal fraud in the morning and leak every shred of this to her clients, colleagues, and everyone else she pretends to be honest with. You're bluffing, Lynette said. But there was a crack in her voice. Check your email 2 minutes, I replied and hung up. Attached the files, screenshots of footage, the altered mortgage document, even the text messages, and hit send. Then, I sat back and waited. An hour later, Aurora called. I didn't answer. She called again. Then again, the 4th time, I picked up and put her on speaker. Curtis, what the hell is this? She barked. What do you think it is? I said quietly. You're insane. You're making this bigger than it is. Is that what Gavin said? Or was your idea? I asked. She went silent. Then colder than I thought she was capable of. She said, if you do this, you won't just ruin me, you'll yourself. No one's going to feel sorry for you, Curtis. You're a sad little man who doesn't know how to keep a woman. I didn't respond. I just ended the call. The next day, I went to the bank and froze all joint accounts. I contacted a real estate attorney. I changed the locks. I filed a police report attaching the footage and documents. I requested a protective order blocking the sale of any jointly owned property. By noon, I wasn't Curtis the fool anymore. I was Curtis the witness. But even then, I hadn't uncovered everything because 2 days later, a brown envelope appeared in my school mailbox with no return address. Inside was a single flash drive and a sticky note that read, "You're not the first, just the first to notice." What was on that drive made everything else look like a warm-up, and it had nothing to do with Gavin. The flash drive was cold in my hand, like it had waited patiently to be found. No label, no markings, just a smooth black casing and that one message. You're not the first, just the first to notice. It didn't feel like a warning. It felt a lifeline. I didn't open it at school. I didn't trust the computers there. Not with whatever this was. Instead, I left work early, went straight to the local library, and took the back table facing the windows. No one was near me, no cameras, just quiet muffled light and the hum of old fluorescent bulbs. I plugged it in. There were 3 folders: audio documents v videos. I clicked on audio first. Inside were 8 files. The titles were just dates, no context. I hit play on the oldest one. It was a woman's voice. Shaky, soft, probably recorded on a phone. She told me not to talk to anyone, that if I said anything, she'd ruin me. I believed her because back then, everyone did. She knew how to make people doubt you. I didn't know what gaslighting was until her. Click. I sat frozen. Who was this? I played the next file. A different voice. Male, rougher, lower, angry. I loaned her $20,000. Said it was for her mom's surgery. She disappeared 2 weeks later. I tracked her to Ohio and guess what? No surgery. Mom, just a condo under someone else's name and a new guy on her arm. Click. My throat went dry. These weren't strangers. These were ghosts from Alora's past. People she thought had vanished. People she erased. But someone had collected their stories, and now they were whispering them to me. I opened the documents folder. Next, dozens of PDFs, statements, screenshots, photos of forged checks, voicemails transcribed. A restraining order from 2014 under the name Rebecca Linwood, an alias I'd never heard before. The woman in the order, Alora, full face, name, different city. She had lived another life before this one. Or maybe this was her 4th, 5th. It wasn't just infidelity or lies anymore. This was systemic. A blueprint she recycled with new names, places, all designed to do one thing: extract, erase, and escape. Finally, I opened the videos folder. Just one file. Allora_dump_209 mpp4. I clicked. It opened on what looked like a screen recording of her phone, chats, photos, scrolling through her notes app. Then it stopped on one particular file, Kurdish strategy notes. I leaned forward. My vision tunneled. She had a strategy. Opened it. The screen recording followed as the notes scrolled. Curtis equals stable, insecure, routine-driven. Use empathy language early. I just need space instead of your suffocating me. Month 1, increase workload excuses. Month 2, begin friends couch nights. Introduce fictional female coworker. Backdate text locks. Month 3, financial detachment. Prep separate accounts, collect documents discreetly. Final stage, position him as controlling to friends' family to neutralize his narrative. Post-exit, I felt sick. Every moment, every argument, single confused stare into her eyes, wondering what I did wrong had been engineered. This wasn't me failing to be enough. This was her succeeding at a plan she'd written before I even saw it coming. Closed the laptop and just sat there in that dim, too quiet corner of the library where no one could see me break. After 15 minutes, I pulled myself together and opened the final file, readme.txt. It wasn't long. If you're reading this, then she's doing it again. We couldn't stop her. But maybe you can. Her name is not Allora. It never was. Start with the name Marissa Vale. That's the one she abandoned the first time vanished. I left the library without saying a word, barely noticing how the world looked more crooked than before. In the parking lot, I stared at horizon for a long time, gripping the flash drive like it was the last piece of myself I still understood. Allora hadn't just betrayed me. She'd built her life out of betrayal. And now I had the blueprint. But I wasn't going to expose her yet. Not until I knew just how far the damage really went. Because people like her don't just hurt the person they're with. They leave wreckage behind them like wildfire. And I was done being the ashes. I spent next 3 days chasing ghosts. It started with the name from text file, Marissa Vale. The first identity she'd abandoned. I dug through local court archives, internet forums, even old alumni pages. Turns out there was no shortage of people who had questions about Marissa. Most of them were rhetorical. Some of them were legal. But one message stood out. It came from a woman named Danielle Torres, a bookstore owner in Michigan. Her reply was short. "If you're asking about Marissa, then you've already been hurt. Call me." I did. Danielle didn't hesitate. "She ruined my brother," she said. "Drained his business accounts, isolated him from everyone. Same pattern. But he never had proof. Not like you." Her voice trembled. "You might be the first one who can stop her." I wasn't angry anymore. Broken. I was awake. And wasn't going to just stop her. I was going to make sure no one else ever had to put themselves back together after being loved by her. I spent the next week handing everything over to a private investigator I trusted, someone outside the county, someone with no connection to her. I also met with a lawyer this time, not for defense, offense. We built a case. Financial fraud, identity manipulation, malicious intent. We gathered statements. I sent Danielle a release form so her brother could join us. 3 more people came forward within the next 2 weeks. And then silence. That silence ended on a Thursday morning when Aurora showed up at my school and announced. She wore all white like she always did when wanted to pretend she was pure. But her face was pale, her hands shaking. She knew. I met her outside in the parking lot. She said quietly. "You've been digging." "No," I replied. "I've been unearthing." Her eyes welled up, but no tears fell. Maybe they dried years ago, or maybe they were never real to begin with. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I understand more than you ever wanted me to," I said. "You thought you were clever. You thought you could write your exit and leave me clinging to a story you'd already finished." I stepped closer, calm as I'd ever been, "but the end isn't yours to write anymore." I handed her a copy of the cease and desist order. A thick packet of everything we'd uncovered. Enough to destroy her professionally. Enough to end the cycle. "If you walk away now," I said, "and you don't contact me again, I won't press charges. You won't go to prison. But if you try to run this play on anyone else, anyone, this goes to court, in the media, internet." She stared at the packet for a long time. Then she took it, nodded once, and turned around without another word. That was the last time I saw her. It's been 11 months now. I sold the house, not because I had to, but because wanted something of my own. I moved to Oregon, smaller town, quieter life. I teach music part-time at a community center. I play piano in the evenings for no one but myself. And I talk to people who've been through the same thing. Men and women who were told they controlling, needy, too much, when all they wanted was honesty. I tell them this. You didn't lose her. She never existed. What you lost was the illusion. What you found is you. As for me, I don't need closure anymore because I finally gave it to